Good morning, and welcome to Raids with Randoms, special edition for Chien-Pao. Now, I'm putting this up out there specifically to highlight this specific build that I have for Chien-Pao that I worked tirelessly on to make work. So we are playing with randoms here, and I'm going to go ahead and play this out, and then I'm going to explain the build after the raid, after you see it in action. First off, we need to get skill swap out immediately before anybody else starts swinging their attack. So I have my turbo controller running, mashing the A button like mad with skill swap in the first move slot to make sure that we steal Sword of Ruin from Chien-Pao and give it weak armor. Now, Chien-Pao does use 3 scripted hazes during the raid, meaning stat changes for both Chien-Pao and the raiders are going to get wiped out. We can see here Chien-Pao opted to use Ice Shard on me, dealing about 60 damage, so that does trigger my weak armor, but skill swap is still getting off before the shield goes up, because the shield is basically going to go up immediately after, almost immediately after the first round, because of moves playing out, scripted actions happening, everything kind of eating up that early time. So as we can see, there's the first scripted haze. Now, I did see one of the allies used Sunny Day, another used Focus Energy. Good strategies for this raid, because those do not get wiped out by haze. Only things like Swords Dance, Belly Drum, Screech, those would get wiped out. So, oh no, Ceruledge is using special moves. Okay, that's a problem. I am going to go ahead and go Phantom Force, since I am higher on hit points. Now, I am EV'd to survive a lot, like, things that you wouldn't think that, you know, a ghost type should be in this setting. There's another haze coming out. Ooh, that actually might be bad timing on my part. Phantom Force comes in. Hopefully we don't take another crunch. But the whole point is for physical attackers to trigger weak armor. Oh, no, there it is. There's the crunch. Okay, yeah, this is probably going to be a wipe. Oh, we might have. Okay, so as we can see, we both came back in, and as long as we don't get another knockout, we should be okay. We did lose the Sword of Ruin on our side, but because of that, we are also taking less damage. There's a stat wipe on our side. Drain Punch going off. It is taking a stat wipe for itself. And oh yeah, we can see the allies did actually manage to deal enough damage before anybody even terastallized because of the stacking weak armor. I noticed Gouging Fire was using a physical fire move with Raging Fury. Annihilate was doing the best thing that Annihilate players can do for this raid and spam Drain Punch. Ceruledge was the main concern here, using Shadow Sneak and what was the other move I saw them use? But I did see them use Shadow Sneak instead of just going straight for Bitter Blade. But all in all, those back-to-back physical attacks from the allies are what drive this strategy. And this was with randoms too. This was not a coordinated group. I have tried this with a couple of coordinated groups on other streams and on our own stream on Twitch. And it works surprisingly well when you're coordinated and everybody brings the physical attackers just swinging at it. Now, the key to this is working around the haze, because haze will reset all stat changes on all Pokemon, meaning Chien-Pao's speed and defense will reset to its baseline, which doesn't really hurt that much when you think about it, because all of the physical attacking allies, every single time they tap that raid boss, it gives it another defense debuff for the next hit to do more damage, and then the next hit to do more damage before that next haze triggers. That's why we broke through the shield before anybody even had a chance to terrestrialize, even though we suffered 2 knockouts, one of them being myself. And with that, we're going to go ahead and go into the box so that I can show you exactly what this build is. And I will be giving the numbers in the video description for what the effort values I used are and what I found are probably slightly more optimized effort values for your benefit if you decide to go and try this, because it is actually kind of fun and it's a way to kind of engage with the raid a little more actively rather than just spamming Drain Punch nonstop. So what we have here, this is the one that I was using, this Polteageist with weak armor and leftovers. Now, originally, I did think I would need Focus Sash, but it turns out with the right training, the Chien-Pao deals most of the time, less than 50% damage. The most Chien-Pao does to you after the skill swap is about 53% damage tops. And considering that damage has a range, the crunch after skill swap is going to do around 44 to 53%. So with this, and you can see the moves here too. Moves are right there on the screen. My stats are a little different than what the optimized build is going to give. But what we have here is we trained a little bit into hit points, maxed out defense, and put in 220 points of speed. And that is important. What led me to this research was I went on Cerebi, found the raid script for Chien-Pao. Check the description down below for a link because it's right there. Chien-Pao comes with Adamant Nature in this raid. Every time, Adamant Nature, with 31 IVs in attack and speed, which made this incredibly easy to figure out the calculation we needed. 220 effort values in speed for a nature that does not affect speed gives Polteageist a speed of 231. Chien-Pao at level 75, which is the raid level, has a 230 speed. Adamant Nature, Perfect IV is going to be 230 every time, so you're outspeeding by 1 point. That is the first key to this working. Because the issue that I ran into with my attempts at a level 1 build were twofold: Ruination and flinches. So I needed to make sure that I could survive most attacks after a Ruination in case that 1 in 4 chance that Ruination hits me, and I needed to make sure that I outsped Chien-Pao. Now, of course, Chien-Pao does have Ice Shard, which means it doesn't matter if you outspeed it, it's going to hit you first. As you saw in that raid, it used Ice Shard at the beginning, but the Ice Shard is not that much of a threat because Ice Shard's a base 40 power. Even the Ice Terra boosting that does not make it stronger than a super effective stab-boosted Crunch. And then so what I had for my build was max defense, and it was 36 effort values into hit points was my build. There's a slight adjustment for the optimal build that I put into a damage calculator where it did make a slight difference and brought down the maximum damage you can take by, let's see, Crunch 144 to 144 to, well, okay, it's about the same, but the point was it's the same amount of damage range. The difference is in the percentage, where the 2-point difference between hit points and defense made it so that you had like about 0.6% more of your health at the end of the day, and that's on the worst hit. Anyway, I digress. What we have here is how to play this. You saw that we got skill swap off immediately at the start of the raid. You want to mash that A button, or if you have a controller with a turbo function, as the raid is starting, have the A button going on turbo so that you beat the other player's command inputs to get skill swap out before you hit the timer or hit point threshold for the shield activation, because Chien-Pao's shield activation is incredibly early. So you want to make sure you get the skill swap off. After that is where it really comes into play in choosing which of these other 3 attacks you're going to use each round. If you took the Ruination, you are going to protect on your next turn. Or, and this is a big or, you can sit and wait because you do have a handful of time before the game forces you into an action if you want to just sit and wait while the physical attacking allies do the work. Now, mind you, this is only going to work with players. NPCs don't do enough damage. In fact, NPCs don't even act unless the host puts in command inputs, which means that they're not going to do the damage if you're not doing anything. So, the Polteageist here can protect, and with leftovers, that protect means you're blocking Chien-Pao's attack and getting a tick of leftovers healing. That tick of leftovers healing is going to help in the long run for your survival. Phantom Force and Sucker Punch. Now, these are the ones where you want to carefully time when you use them. Remember, like I said repeatedly, Chien-Pao uses Haze 3 times. It's scripted to certain time markers in the raid timer. So if anybody gets knocked out, the raid timer takes a hit, jumps down, and then all of a sudden, it can trigger multiple scripted actions. You could end up having multiple hazes going off. But those hazes reset Chien-Pao's defense and speed. As a tap hitter dealing chip damage, the only reason you're dealing any damage is to trigger weak armor. Everybody else is there to do most of the damage. You just want maybe 1 or 2 little hits to trigger weak armor so that they can do that bit more of damage with the defense drops. So when haze happens, you can protect immediately after you get the skill swap off, and then hold for a few seconds until you see the haze go off on the screen. And then depending on what's going on, depending on where your health is at, choose whether you're going to go Phantom Force or Sucker Punch, and it's best to decide ahead of time. If you're worried about damage from Ice Shard knocking you out, if you are really low on health, you might want to withhold your action until maybe another haze, let the timer go down. Maybe the raid allies will terrestrialize fast and get things taken care of. Or you can use Sucker Punch immediately after the haze, because remember, after haze, speed is set back to normal. You outspeed Chien-Pao. A weak armor has to activate before he outspeeds you again. So Sucker Punch can be used to outspeed Ice Shard, or if you're high on health and you're not even worried about getting knocked out by Crunch, go ahead, toss a Sucker Punch in there, and maybe use Crunch, or maybe use Phantom Force on the next round after another Protect. Or you use Phantom Force, and here's where Phantom Force got tricky with a couple of my runs on this. If I time it carefully so that I use Phantom Force immediately after a haze, I'm faster than Chien-Pao when I start Phantom Force and remove myself from the field. But during that time, other players are hitting Chien-Pao, meaning they're activating weak armor, triggering the weak armor to raise Chien-Pao's speed so that its next action is faster than the follow-up hitting turn of Phantom Force, which is honestly a cool interaction if you get the timing down right. You got to be real careful with laying this out, but it is incredibly fun when you pull it off, and it is rewarding. You saw how fast that raid was, even though we took 2 knockouts, and I got knocked out, which kind of maybe hindered, but also maybe saved us. Because remember, Sword of Ruin is a unique ability. The Ruin abilities in general are pretty unique in that they debuff the stats of everything except for the Pokemon with the ability. So when Chien-Pao has Sword of Ruin, we are all suffering the defense debuff. But when I took Sword of Ruin, suddenly I'm not suffering the debuff, but my raid allies are, which is bad for the Ceruledge, and it was bad for, actually, yeah, just the Ceruledge. The rest of them stayed in just fine. But the Ceruledge did kind of suffer from that since they were using weaker attacks. They weren't getting healing since they weren't using Bitter Blade, but we still managed to pull through because the others just carried it so effectively in that raid, which I'm impressed that the randoms pulled that off. And I know that this video is getting a little long, but I cannot stress enough how fun this is to come up with a stupid raid idea, and it just feels so good when you get it right. But remember, check the description down below. I do have the numbers down there for what I picked as the optimal build of the raid stats, because when I put it into a damage calculator, it did offer an extra, very slight percentage advantage where like I'm looking at this at the damage calculator, Pokemon Showdown damage calculator, where 44 hit points and 244 defense means that if you take Ruination, Ruination sets you at half health, meaning after that Ruination, you are taking anywhere from 44.1 to 52.9% of damage. And the damage calculator says that Crunch after Ruination is 31.3 chance to knock you out. Which, honestly, if you get knocked out, as long as the rest of the raiders are dealing substantial physical damage, you can still complete the raid with plenty of time to spare. As you saw on our run here, we suffered 2 knockouts. I know I'm getting a little repetitive, but I can't stress that we suffered 2 knockouts against a hard attacking event raid. Even though it is just a level 75, it still hits pretty hard. So before I got knocked out, that Sword of Ruin was also boosting all of our damage going into it. But that's 44 hit points, 244 defense, compared to the 36 252 that I used, where that crunch is 53 point, or no, okay, it's still 31.3% chance to Oko, but you do end up with marginally more health, like just that slight little bit more health. You go from 270 to 272, which okay, off the top of my head, I don't know if that's an extra, like, I don't know if that's one more hit point off of leftovers, but it's still pretty useful after the Ruination comes out on that turn 0. But of course, that's also assuming you even get hit by Ruination in the first place, because Ruination is only targeting one player. There's a 1 in 4 chance that Ruination doesn't hit, or no, there's a 1 in 4 chance Ruination does hit you. But then your skill swap goes off, making Chien-Pao's attacks do less damage to you, at least. And you just kind of carry it from there. Even if you get knocked out, you can handle that. But it's still like it's a 1 in 3 chance you get knocked out after the 1 in 4 chance that it even uses Crunch in the first place, that it didn't use Icicle Crash. And again, because the Icicle Crash, you have to worry about the flinches from that. But if you're that 1 point faster, you don't need to worry about flinches. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Let me know what other kinds of weird, fun builds you've used. I know people have soloed this with a lot of metronome drain punch strategies, which honestly, that is a very good strategy. The fact that it can solo, or a squad of 4 randoms can all bring Iron Hands, and with the implicit agreement that nobody belly drums, just nobody belly drum. Don't you frickin' do it. Do not belly drum, or Pokemon will come after you. Okay, maybe not actually come after you, but just please don't belly drum in this raid. Haze is going to wipe it out, and you're just going to be down on health.